Good morning, everyone. I'm Mario Pinto, Vice President of Research and International. Welcome to the Ignite Lectures. This has been a dream of mine, and I'm glad to see it come to fruition. Welcome all those joining us virtually as well. I recognize that the University of Manitoba campuses are located, too far ahead, are located on the original lands of Anishinaabe, Innu, Anisininnu, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership, in a symbiotic partnership with Indigenous communities, in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. On a personal note, let me pay my respects to the elders and survivors, and I had the occasion to spend 3 days with the elders and survivors last week, and let me tell you, it was a gut-wrenching experience. And I extend that respect to all Indigenous peoples. The University of Manitoba has a rich history of delivering top quality research, and I'm very pleased to join that effort very recently, but it seems like eons ago. The pilot Ignite program builds upon this foundation, enhancing our capacity and building our global profile through bold, forward-thinking research that tackles complex challenges through interdisciplinary collaborations. Bringing together seemingly disparate disciplines in imaginative combinations is our aspiration in the strategic research plan and is one of my passions. Towards this end, we initiated the Ignite program at a smaller scale to begin to change the culture at UM in preparation for competing in major external grant competitions. The projects were also intended to elevate the reputation of research and serve as prominent examples of the public value we offer through our expertise and partnerships. The Ignite program offers $350,000 per year for up to 3 years, subject to performance to the winners of a competition. The multi-year strategic investment will support groundbreaking, high-risk, high-reward research. We are not simply allocating additional funds to ongoing initiatives, but fostering new internal and external partnerships to respond to complex societal problems. The funds are intended to seed investment in larger, externally funded partnerships, providing strategic investment, of strategic return on the investment. For this reason, I should emphasize that these are not faculty specific, and we're trying to go away from that ownership model where one faculty apparently owns one of the projects. This is not the case here. They will be distributed, right, among the different participants. And the idea is to get together in these imaginative configurations. This year, we received 17 outstanding stage 1 proposals from across faculties and across campuses. 5 were invited to submit stage 2 proposals, and these were of such high caliber that the committee decided to fund all 5. So please join me in welcoming our inaugural Ignite program leaders, and if you wouldn't mind standing and be recognized when your name is called, Dr. Philip Ferguson. Dr. Versha Banerji. Dr. Yunhua Lo. Dr. Song Liu. And Dr. Adele Perry. Congratulations to all these team leaders They put forward some extraordinary proposals, and the committee was very impressed. The format for these lectures will be as follows. Each speaker will present for 10 minutes, no more. We will have the giant hook come out, and Charmaine is in charge of the hook, so please stay to your time. And this will be followed by a question and answer session of 5 minutes for each speaker. Our president will join us to conclude the formal proceedings, and following this, we will have an informal meet and greet session at which you can continue the discussion, ask further questions, and exchange ideas. But before all that, I ask all speakers to come to the front so that we may take a picture for the historical record. So, ladies and gentlemen, the first speaker in the series is Dr. Phil Ferguson, who will tell us about Arctic community connectivity for equity, sustainability, and service, abbreviated as ACCESS. So welcome, Phil.
All right, well, thanks very much. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here to introduce this project. I think Dr. Pinto really said it really well when the inception of this project was really we were trying to find ways to bring faculties together to solve problems in northern and remote communities. You know, when we step back and we think about connectivity, I think we all take for granted how connected our lives are. We have cell phones that are always connected to the internet. We have fiber optic internet at home. And we use this internet to do everything from ordering groceries to buying gifts. And our vehicles are connected to the internet. Our refrigerators are connected to the internet. And it's a seamless part of our society. Even those of us, myself included, that live outside of the confines of Winnipeg, we still have this connectivity through satellite networks, such as Starlink, that has thousands of satellites in the sky that give us high-speed network access. I can even lecture my classes from home if I need to, if we're sick, or if there happens to be a global pandemic. Unfortunately, though, that coverage is limited. If you take a look at the map that shows coverage of just the Rogers cell phone coverage, you can see that you don't have to get very far north to lose coverage altogether. And in fact, along the western coast of Hudson Bay, there's no coverage at all. Now you can say, well, what about that fancy satellite network? Do they have coverage? Well, the answer is yes, but sort of. So this was an image that I took from last week of the Starlink constellation that shows the thousands of spacecraft. But if I take a more Arctic-centric view of this, we can see that the satellites in polar orbits pale in comparison to those in southern orbits. That doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It certainly does work in the Arctic, and many people use it, but the equipment that's required to talk to those satellites is large and bulky and not mobile. And so the people that live in those communities that venture away from their communities have trouble communicating. And let's face it, life in these Arctic communities is very different than it is down here in the south. These communities, while they do have grocery stores and schools within the community, they often venture outside their community to hunt and to trap and to gather food to sustain the rest of the community. When they are out on the land, they are at risk. They are at risk to the weather conditions. They're at risk for having injuries and falls. A few weeks ago, I was at a meeting in downtown Winnipeg where 25 members from these communities met to discuss search and rescue. And I was shocked to learn that the Sapulji group out of Chesterfield Inlet goes out at least 2 to 3 times per week to rescue people that have been stranded on the ice. This is a big problem, and they need better communications. Now you can say, well, when I go out hiking, I bring with me a Garmin inReach or I bring a satellite phone. How come those don't work? Well, they do work, but let me tell you something that's interesting about that. So when these Garmin devices have the emergency button pressed, somebody in Texas learns that they are in trouble. That person in Texas calls somebody in Ottawa, they then call somebody in Chesterfield Inlet, and then they hope to find the right people on the ice. Those are seconds and minutes that these people do not have. Furthermore, it's only a one-way communication. They don't have the opportunity to set up a video link or to discuss problems with community members. It's really only a one-way discussion. Now, Iridium does provide that, but it's only a voice link. There is no data that can go over that. And that data is critical, particularly as the Arctic is changing rapidly due to climate change. The ice conditions are unsafe. The ice is moving in ways that never has before, and the travel corridors that they normally use to hunt on are no longer safe. That is in combination with the fact that because there's more open water, there's more ship traffic than ever, and this ship traffic disrupts wildlife, and it also impacts their ability to move. So with all of this in mind, and with the work that I have done with Chesterfield Inlet and learning about these challenges, we've proposed this project, Access, which as you've seen is the Arctic Community Connectivity for Equity, Sustainability, and Service. And really what this is a community-centric project where we understand the needs of the community, we understand the ways in which that they are communicating now, and where that needs to be in the future. So at the heart of this technology is a blimp, an airship, a zeppelin, whatever you want to call it. It quite literally is a 20 to 30 meter long airship that will be able to lift about 50 to 100 kilograms worth of communications equipment and literally follow the teams as they leave their community, almost like a physical cloud that's providing virtual cloud services. This airship will have Starlink equipment that will be able to speak to the sparse network above and pipe that data directly to the handsets of the hunters and trappers on the ground. With this, they will be able to perform potentially medical services to the teams using telerobotic medicine. They will also be able to get information about what's happening in their surroundings, like changes to the ice or changes to the weather, or even track ships as they're moving through the ocean nearby where they're doing their work. I think most importantly, though, what this does is it connects them back with their community. They can connect to healers in the community, they can connect with other healthcare professionals, or they can connect with their families on these weeks or months-long trips. Now, I mentioned that this project is community-centric, and the community that we're working with is called Chesterfield Inlet. It's about half the way up Hudson Bay on the west coast. I was fortunate enough on my first trip to Chesterfield Inlet back in 2022. We worked with the community, and we learned about some of the challenges that they have. And so that's why our team is centered on the community. Mr. David Katagatsiak is the Chief Economic Development Officer, and he's leading this project from Chesterfield Inlet. And then rounding out the team are representatives from 6 different faculties across this university, including social work, environment, arts and security, business, medicine, and engineering as well. And all of us have expertise in these areas, and we are all looking forward to coming together with the community to help solve this fundamental challenge of connecting the North. So we have 4 basic objectives that we want to cover in this project, and the first is assessing. The first is understanding firsthand, where are these challenges? When I was in the Arctic a while ago, they told me that they all get together on Thursday nights and have bingo nights with the other communities, and they talk over AM radio. And that kind of made me chuckle. AM radio, do we even have that here in Winnipeg? I guess we do, right? But so they were asking me, well, what other options are available? And we talked about satellites, we talked about drones, we talked about airships, and this is all very exciting for them. But because this is a community-centric project, we need to understand those challenges firsthand. And then we'll develop. We'll start building upon some of the drone and blimp and airship technologies that we've already been developing and trying out at the Sea Ice Experimental Research Facility here on campus, or SURF. We're working very closely with Buoyant Air Systems International, or BASI. They have some experience building larger airships, and so we're starting with some of their designs. And then we will be developing new and innovative control systems that can be controlled directly by the community members as they are working with us to develop these airship systems. Then we'll deploy them. We'll take them up north. More than likely, the first systems that we develop here at the University of Manitoba will be helium-based because it's safer and easier. But when we get up north, we cannot ship helium. It's very difficult to get and difficult to ship. We will be generating our own hydrogen. So we'll be working with the communities. I actually have a trip scheduled for 2 weeks from now to Chesterfield Inlet to understand what the hydrogen generation facilities look like. But then once we have this airship in the air, we'll be sharing the data directly to the handsets of the hunters and trappers on the ground, but also through the SIKU data sharing network. This is a network of hunters and trappers and Arctic researchers that share information about wildlife and other weather patterns throughout their area. And we have SIKU on board this team to make sure that we can integrate that data seamlessly. And then finally, we will demonstrate. We will demonstrate how we could do telerobotic medicine over high-speed data links in quite literally the middle of the tundra. Things like demonstrating palpation or treating compound fractures or any other kind of ailment that the hunters and trappers might experience that have so far been so isolated from the rest of their community. We'll work with the hunters and the trappers and the Guardians program out of Chesterfield Inlet and really demonstrate the value of this system. But of course, this is not the end. This is a stepping stone for much bigger and better things. We want to take this and extend it to other communities, understand how we can address this on a more countrywide scale, not just one blimp, but how do we provide equitable network connectivity to these northern communities all across Canada. So we're thrilled to be able to do that, and I think that honestly, the University of Manitoba is the right place to do it. We're the right people, we've got the right teams, and let's make a difference in these communities. So thanks very much for your time, and I appreciate any questions.
Switch, please. Sure. I'm sure Phil will be pleased to answer any questions.
Sure.
Sachin. Just wait for the mic, please.
That was a really nice talk. Thank you for sharing. Two quick questions. When you look at the schematic with the blimp and all the equipment that's there, you're collecting essentially, when you look at icebergs and ships and all that, those are all data pieces. So is there an AI component with learning mechanisms so that you can decipher all the information? So I know it's a human-to-human contact, but that deep learning component, is that planned to be launched so that it becomes more informative? Number two, I could see potential of spin-offs even for industry, and that now you're setting up a link in the air where maybe some local community-based navigation companies can be set up because they could start charting how ships are going across, where the icebergs are, and so you can spin off revenue generation for the local community with that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for that question. I think you touched on a really good point there, which is the difference between data and information. And what the community needs isn't hard drives full of data. They need information that they can actually act on. And that critical link between data and information can be made with artificial intelligence. So yes, absolutely. Finding ways to understand the linkages between what's happening in the environment and what's happening on the ground, understanding how the community and the social structures interact with this new communication network is something that AI can do, and actually, frankly, something that we are very good at in this university as well. And then your other question about spawning new activities. Absolutely. Every time I speak with the Chief Economic Development Officer, David Katagatsiak from Chesterfield Inlet, he's ahead of me about 13 weeks, I think, honestly, in ideas of what we could use this for. In fact, he asked me last week, he said, "Do you think you could help us find gravel?" And I said, "Gravel?" And he said, "Oh yeah, we're building all these roads and we have trouble finding rocks that we can pound into gravel, and I think that maybe this could be a great opportunity." I said, "Absolutely," right? I mean, this isn't just, we show up to the Arctic helping them to develop solutions, and we kind of meander the way that the community suggests. And so absolutely, I think that this could be an opportunity to track other things such as gravel or other wildlife migrations, but like you say, open up new business opportunities for the community. It's a great comment. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
Hi there. I really enjoyed your talk, and I'm just wondering about some of the capacity building elements that might be in your project. So for example, if you have the technology up there and it breaks down and you're down here, then are you building in some support networks so that the community can repair or, participate in the technology?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll be clear and say that this technology is being developed by the community members. So this is not technology that we are developing down here in the south and then going to move up there. Every step of the way, the community members are involved with the development. So absolutely, yes, this will involve training on how to operate airships. It'll involve training on how to collect this data. But that training is two-way also, right? So while we have expertise in how to build drones, I do not have expertise in how the ice and the wind wind and the weather systems behave up north. We also don't have expertise in what that looks like when ice becomes unsafe. And so this is truly a two-way co-development project where we get trained we in the South get trained about how operations work up north, and the northern people are being trained on how these drone systems work. In a couple of weeks when I'm up in Chesterfield, we'll be starting to train some of the youth on how to operate drones and airships, and we've had a tremendous response already. And so we're really looking forward to learning with them together, and so that they are not reliant on us to maintain this system that they own. This is their system. They will operate it. They will maintain it, and we're there to facilitate.
Thank you. Any questions online, Charmaine?
We do have one question. Have you considered how this project may intersect with military and national security concerns in Northern Canada?
Yes, absolutely. And it's actually one of the reasons why we have as a co-applicant Dr. Andrea Sharon on the team. Anytime we're sharing information about anything, there's a potential that this could get into the wrong hands. So it's very important that this information, particularly as it pertains to Indigenous and Inuit communities, be protected. And so, yes, absolutely. I think that this is a very important aspect of this project and something that I've been working very closely with Dr. Sharon on.
I believe we're out of time. Please join me once again in thanking Phil for a spectacular lecture. Well done. With that, we move to our second speaker, Dr. Versha Banerji, and she's going to tell us about an interdisciplinary approach, which is very far-reaching, to understanding how mental health, nutrition, multi-omics, and the microbiome interact in chronic lymphocytic leukemia, CLL. This is a very broad and ambitious project, and I'm looking forward to hear her summarize such a broad topic. Welcome, Banerji.
Thank you, Dr. Pinto. I would like to acknowledge my privilege as a child of immigrant parents and my personal commitment to inclusion and reconciliation. I would also like to thank those who supported me, my husband, my kids, our families and friends, and those who believed in my vision and mentored me. I'd also like to thank Karen Rempel-Limbert and Amy Oliver for getting me to this point. So we're going to talk about the truth about gut feelings. These are my disclosures. In the remaining time, I hope to impress upon you the gaps that need to be filled and share with you the unmet need that our team will address through this project. Cancer is always portrayed as a battle. It has to be conquered, fought, defeated, and cured. We have definitely created hope with our new scientific discoveries and treatments. However, we don't necessarily cure everyone, as many people are living with cancer opposed to dying from it, leading to the concept behind cancer as a chronic disease. This is a world that chronic lymphocytic leukemia patients know too well. Before I can discuss leukemia, let me share with you what normal blood looks like under the microscope. Think of the bone marrow as the factory that makes all cells in blood, as a symphony orchestra. The instruments need to be in perfect balance and harmony to make beautiful music. Now, this image represents the blood of a patient with chronic lymphocytic leukemia. Opposed to the previous slide where there were 20 red cells for every one lymphocyte, here you can see that there are many more. And more importantly, they are all wearing the same uniform, a term we call clonal, or arising from the same cell. These cells are known as mature B lymphocytes that normally produce antibodies and fight infections in our bodies. They are also part of the immune system's communication network that enable our body to remove abnormal cells from other tissues, preventing second cancers. So what is chronic lymphocytic leukemia? Think of the lymphocytes as the trumpets in our orchestra analogy, and if they increase in number, they drown out the other instruments, leading to the accumulation of cells that can't do their job appropriately, and drown out other instruments, but also create a breakdown in communication between the members of the brass section, in addition to other key players, preventing everyone from doing their job well. So why use chronic lymphocytic leukemia as a model of study? The advances that have struck in the field of cancer happened in chronic lymphocytic leukemia first, leading to patients living longer with their cancer. There are 2,500 new diagnoses of chronic lymphocytic leukemia every year in Canada, and many more people live every day with this chronic cancer, treated or not. The average age is 72, but 90% of these patients are diagnosed at the age of 55, and 89% will have another medical condition. And most importantly, it is incurable. Data suggests survival of these patients is improved with CLL-specific care because of the silent complications of the disease, such as an increased mutation burden in the cells because they sit too long in one's body, otherwise known as genomic instability, or a weakened immune system leading to infections, and more importantly, the under-recognized complications of second cancers. In addition to the chronic monitoring of untreated patients, for those that meet criteria for treatment, the goals of care are simple: long-term disease control, improved symptoms, and quality of life with safe and tolerable treatments. The secondary goals of treatment, including those patients who don't need treatment right away, is to actively observe patients to intervene in a timely manner. This will help reduce the chances of the genetic code of these cells to be altered, preventing accelerated progressions or making them resistant to treatments. During this period, we can identify those who are more susceptible to infections and second cancers and intervene early. We could also reset their immune system with treatments or support them with education, vaccinations, or blood products that may boost their immune system. This project stems from conversations with patients. You are a new patient in my clinic, and I disclose your diagnosis. It's the most common leukemia in older adults. Our focus is on quality of life because it is incurable. At this time, you don't need treatment. On the clinic side, patients are told that this is good news, and they don't have to be treated. But on the patient side, I sound like the teacher in Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. What do you mean you won't treat me? My friend had cancer, and they cut it out, or they had chemo, or they got radiation. When will you see me next? I'm really worried about every appointment I have with you. I don't know what you're going to tell me. The medical system, We in Manitoba have a unique model of care for chronic lymphocytic leukemia in Canada. These patients are often fragmented across practices in other jurisdictions. However, our centralized care model, built over the years, has enabled us to be leaders in clinical practice, drug implementation and evaluation, creation of a biobank to study the biology of the cancer, and allowed for rapid enrollment in clinical trials. It has also enabled the curation of complex databases. The medical system has mainly focused on the disease itself. Our team is interested in a holistic approach to patient care. Our group aims to fill this gap and create a model of care that could be applied to cancer and beyond. The interplay between biomedical markers, mental health, nutrition, metabolic health, and the microbiome, which requires complex analytic approaches, may be essential to understand the host-immune relationship to stratify patients, whether treated or not. Can we take this opportunity to better understand the intersectionality to build tools and care models that are better informed to improve patient care, a living and learning model of care? Most importantly, we want to design a tool, such as an app for patients, to enable us to evaluate and educate so we can learn and evolve care through their partnership. Our team of experts aims to study consented cohorts of patients and collect data on their mental health, activity, nutrition, biopsychosocial profile, along with samples of blood and stool. These samples will test the basic building blocks of our immune system, the cancer and non-cancer genes and proteins, along with the gut microbiome, to evaluate differences and similarities between them, along with their general health data, to identify signatures, to develop a model of care to support and enhance prevention of complications of CLL, and better understand treatment response. And this all while considering our limited resources. Our group also aims to establish in vivo models to help discover new therapies. We will also be looking at the health of T cells to optimize manufacturing of new treatments such as CAR cell therapy. Finally, we aim to create an app to help deliver some of the research questionnaires and be a resource for our patients. The amount of data generated requires a plan to store, curate, and evaluate information in a manner that brings together health services, statistics, and bioinformatics to help inform a model of care for cancer as a chronic disease while optimizing prevention health and improving therapeutic responses. We plan to use complex workflows integrating the study of epigenomics, genomics, transcriptomics, proteomics, metabolomics, immune profiling, along with the study of the microbiome. We will collect in parallel mental health, nutrition data, along with comprehensive health data from clinical repositories. This team brings together 3 faculties with Dr. Muthukumaran and Dr. Taylor. It also has a lineup of stellar, talented clinicians and scientists across all career levels to help execute this vision as co-applicants and as collaborators, along with the clinical teams that support our patients. Equity and access are an important consideration in designing studies. Having the patient voice as an integral piece is an important accomplishment. I'm extremely grateful for their support and the support of our EDI champions. To my cheerleaders and advisors and future advisors, I also thank you. Thank you to our funding partners. We could not have been here without the funding for the CLL unit and the match donors for the IGNITE grant. I am also excited by the future opportunities to bring in additional funding from traditional granting agencies such as CIHR and other health research organizations, but also about the opportunities that are out of the box for collaboration. With this, I would like to thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Versha, for this fascinating account of a new model for patient-driven and patient-centered healthcare. So the paper is open for questions and discussion.
Good morning, and thank you, Versha. That was really, really cool. A close to exhaustive way of having a patient journey documented and monitored. How many patients do you envisage would go through this program that you have set up or you will be setting up?
So our clinical practice currently follows in our registry about 1,500 patients. We are doing this as a pilot, and our goal is to enroll 35 patients that are untreated, 35 patients that are treated, and 20 patients that are unaffected. And then the idea through additional funding would be to increase the N over time. And most of that is driven by the cost of the complex testing that we're going to be doing, but also setting up in terms of the evaluation of the other survey-based research.
Great, wonderful. Do you envisage that in the future, maybe distant, but not so distant, every single CLL patient would go through this process?
So that's a great question, and I would love for that to be the dream, but I have to be realistic when it comes to costs. I think that we can use the data that we're going to be generating to find what's essential to evaluate in this patient population. We'll also learn from the large amounts of data assimilation on the patterns that we're seeing across certain subtypes of patients, and that might actually help us to further delineate which patients require our services and which can be better served by other types of healthcare providers to create the best multidisciplinary team that is there for the patients regardless of what part of that journey they're on.
Other questions? Anything online, Charmaine? Let me just make a comment, and I'll emphasize this. This is probably where Canada should be in terms of healthcare delivery, and it sets a precedent. So I'm very pleased that the University of Manitoba is leading the charge on this. This is very ambitious within the Canadian system. It's more accepted in other countries, but really this is going to be a first. If we can pull together, and if you can pull together with your team, the range of specialties all the way from the multi-omics, and there will be a test on the multi-omics, by the way, all the way through to mental health and nutrition and the gut microbiome. So I think this is very far-reaching. It delves into where we could be leaders at the University of Manitoba, patient-driven and patient-centered healthcare, and not just use those words, but to actually, breathe life into that model. So I look forward to the progress that you're going to make, and you'll be reporting back in 1 year.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Yunhua Lo, and he's going to tell us about bedside bioprinting of orthopedic devices and bridging the interdisciplinary gaps in automation of personalized treatments. Okay? So welcome, Yun.
Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Pinto. Good morning. I'm Yunhua Lo, and it's my honor to represent our team and present our research program to you today. Sorry about that. First and foremost, we extend our heartfelt thanks to the Ignite Committee and the university for their invaluable support and confidence in our vision. Our research program is about the innovative bedside bioprinting of orthopedic devices. Our work is a collaborative effort aimed at, firstly, to overcome the interdisciplinary challenges. So in this presentation, I will touch the motivation behind our research program, outline our long-term and short-term objectives, introduce our team, and discuss the significant benefits we anticipate from this research program. Bone fractures are really a global health concern affecting hundreds of millions of people over the world, including Canadians. So our motivation stems from this pressing need to address the widespread impact of bone fractures and the limitations of current treatments in ensuring long-term success. Our long-term vision is ambitious: to develop the world's first automated bedside bioprinting system for orthopedic treatments. So this pioneering technology will fundamentally transform how we approach and manage orthopedic care. So imagine a future hospital equipped with our automated treatment system, and everything is controlled by a computer. Okay? And now a patient with a hip fracture is brought into this futuristic healthcare facility. So upon the patient's arrival, the treatment starts with a series of precise automated diagnosis. The first step is about a biologic diagnosis using our lab-on-chip devices. These devices provide us with accurate biological information about the patient, and which is very important for us to design personalized treatment. And next step involves conducting a mechanical assessment using our advanced CT MRI scanner. So this cutting-edge imaging technology generates highly detailed images of the fracture site. And these are very critical for us to assessing the bone strength and design customized orthopedic device. And next step is to consult the patient's historical health data. So this data retrieved from the central personal health databases allows us to consider the patient's entire medical history in the planning of the personalized treatment. So after completing the diagnosis, the central computer selects materials from our biomaterial bank, perfectly match the patient's unique biological characteristics. And then the computer designs a customized orthopedic device that can be seamlessly fit into the fracture site. And the innovative aspect of this design process is the consideration of all the biologic and mechanical variables, factors into the design to ensure both short-term and long-term success of the treatment. Okay, so after the design, the fracture site is meticulously prepared by a robotic arm equipped with advanced surgical tools. These tools can trim, drill, and make precise incisions, and with accuracy at the level of micrometers. So following the preparation of the fracture site, another robotic arm precisely prints biomaterials by focal into the fracture site and repair the fractured bone. Now we come to the stage of recovery and the bone regeneration. Over the time, the biomaterials will be gradually replaced by new and healthy bones with the guidance of the precision engineered biomaterials we designed. And this recovery is not just about getting back to your feet. It's about emerging stronger with a regenerated hip. Okay. Our short mission is clear: to bridge the following three interdisciplinary gaps. First, we will improve in vivo characterization and bone quality and strength, which is critical for the device design. And second, we ensure patient-specific biocompatibility of materials, which is crucial for long-term success. And lastly, we will integrate biological and mechanical designs in the development of the orthopedic devices. Our team is a unique assembly of complementary expertise essential for our research program. We have 3 orthopedic surgeons and 1 dentist who contribute expertise on patient care and surgical precision. Our medical and basic scientists contribute to understanding of biocompatibility of materials, and the mechanical and biomedical engineers in our team deal with material, bone strength, and device design. And lastly, our 2 industrial partners, OIC and PADM, contribute to us by offering practical perspectives and resources. Those are very crucial for bringing our innovations from the lab to hospitals. Our system is set to transform lives. So for patients, our system will dramatically improve the quality of life after fractures. And for health professionals, it will significantly reduce workload and intensity. And more importantly, it serves as a tool for training next generation of surgeons. And this healthcare system benefits from both increasing long-term success rate and reducing repeat hospitalizations, and therefore saving healthcare spendings and resources. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Please free ask questions and always share your thoughts. It's very important for our program. Thank you.
Thank you, Yunhua. This fascinating lecture, sign me up. Okay. Questions? Yes.
Thank you. That was really exciting. I'm wondering what size fractures are you looking at? Can you do an entire hip replacement? As I'm aging, I'm starting to think about that. Or is it smaller type fractures?
You mean the fracture side?
Yes.
It can be large. Yeah, the hip is the most complicated part because it involves a lot of things. First, it's this relative motion. It needs to rotate. Yeah. And second, on the femoral head, neck, there's lots of blood vessels. It's difficult to treat.
Okay, well, when I need it, I hope you got it working.
Don't try to jump the queue here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great talk, thank you very much. So which kind of biomaterial you would like to use, especially when you have contact of your material with living cells?
Thank you for this really excellent question. So the material is the most important, sorry, thank you. So material is the most important part of our research program. So we're going to use composite material. So for example, polylactic acid is kind of a polymer, and hydroxyapatite, they both can combine to develop a composite material because both of them are compatible to the body, to human body. Thank you. Sorry, I cannot hear you.
Which bioadhesive we will use? Because you need to keep your, for example, bones together, and you need to enable them from blood vessel to grow, to cell to migrate, and so. And there should be some biomaterials. I mean, what you are talking about plastic. So you want to put a plastic, and it's not good proposition to be
You talk about the strength of the material, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
It's
So-
what you said. To my chemical understanding, it's a plastic actually.
No, it's not purely plastic because it's composite. The PLA that is good for it's flexible. That's true. But the HA, the hydroxyapatite, is the mineral. It's very stiff. So combine these two together, you can have the flexibility and also the stiffness. Yeah. And of course, there are some other composite materials we're going to develop. Yeah.
Versha has a question over here. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Shach.
Thank you very much for your talk. So just looking at the demographics of the population, you're probably going to have many more elderly patients who need hip replacement surgeries. But is there any effort to target maybe the high performance athlete population that experience a degeneration or breaks or all that? Because you potentially could have a population that has a faster rate of recovery and maybe even improve biometrics post-surgery. So any thoughts on that?
Okay, so it's a good question. Of course, that is related to our design process. The device, the orthopedic device, is customized design to the patient. For example, how strong the original bone is, and which part is weak. So all of this should be considered in the design of the device. So we try to design a orthopedic device that is the strongest for this person, but not the strongest in the world. So we have to find the optimum design for the patient. Thank you.
Thank you for your talk. I'm not sure where you are in the journey of this project, but I was wondering if you're also considering collecting data from patients that have gone through the procedure versus standard procedures to understand the patient-reported outcomes and how they feel around those pieces.
So the data, the health data required in our program is basically related to the history of the patient's medical aspect. So those probably is very useful for us to design, for example, personalized drugs, for example, to prevent inflammation. And also we need to embed the bone growth factors to help the recovery of the fractured bone. Yeah, thank you.
Song, did you have a question? Use the mic.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I just have a follow-up question about 3D printing, because you use two different materials. One is PLA, it has a melting point around 200, and then you have inorganic material. So what will be the bioprinting mechanisms for those materials?
Sorry?
Bioprinting mechanisms. You're going to have different printing strategies, right? Can you elaborate on
So you mean talk about printing?
Yeah, because your project is about bioprinting. So what strategy will you use specifically?
Okay, so first this is a good question. In the printing, it probably generates high temperature. So we need to have to create a micro environment, so-called micro environment, so that the heat is focused on the material itself, not spread to the tissue around it. So we need to develop a so-called tiny environment. Yeah, so very much similar to teeth cleaning, when you're cleaning your teeth, you have to remove the plaques and then use something suck out the water and the debris, right? So that's what we are considering. Thank you. Yeah.
Charmaine, any questions? No questions? Okay, thank you. Just make a very brief comment that I was very pleased to see mechanical engineers on your team, because assessing the forces on bones is going to be critical here. So with that, please join me in thanking Dr. Liu for his lecture. Could have had another lecture.
Sorry, that's my supplement.
Supplementary. All right. Our next speaker is Dr. Song Liu, and he's going to tell us about engineering innovative skin substitutes for treating burn and chronic wounds. I'm going to leave here as a bionic man. I can just feel it. So, Dr. Liu, all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Pinto, for the introduction. It's my pleasure to share with you the project on engineering innovative skin substitutes. So all of you have felt the sting of a minor burn. Thankfully, these heal quickly without long-lasting consequences. But for patients with more serious burns, the story is far more complex. So here, I want to show you a scar from deep partial thickness burn without skin graft. Now let's compare to a similar burn with the skin graft. The scar is smaller, but it's still visible and permanent, right? Like as a testament to the past trauma. And also scar tissues often lack sweat glands, making thermal regulation more difficult. So, but what if that didn't have to be the story? What if we can heal burns without a trace? Today, I'm here to unveil a future where burns and chronic wounds don't leave their mark. A future where innovative skin substitutes, like the one I'm here to present, will heal wounds without a trace. So first, I want to just give an overview of the skin structure. Skin plays many important roles, like thermal regulation, protection against infection, and also basically aesthetic function. It has distinct layers, epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis, and burns are classified according to the level of damage to those layers. Deep partial thickness burns, they remove both epidermis and the dermis, part of dermis, whereas the foul thickness burns, they destroy the complete epidermis and the dermis layer, and it may extend to hypodermis. Basically, in that case, no natural healing is possible. These wounds would need skin grafts to help protect against the infection, promote rapid wound closure, and reduce excessive scarring and contractures. Autologous skin grafts harvested from the patient's own body is considered as a gold standard for burn treatment. Skin is generally meshed at a certain ratio to cover a large burn. At the Health Science Center, the commonly used mesh ratio is 1.5 to 1. And to cover larger burns, the ratio can increase to 3 to 1 and even 9 to 1. So that means when the mesh ratio is 3 to 1, only 1/3 of the wound has a skin on it. The rest like 2/3 is empty space that will be filled by scar tissue. But for more extensive burns, the donor sites may be inadequate, even with those high mesh ratios. So here we see a massive 93% burn with staggering 85% being full thickness. So unfortunately, in this case, the light pink areas are the only donor sites. We simply don't have enough donor skins to cover the whole burn. And so that's the really limitation of the autologous skin graft. Historically, cadaveric allografts, those skins from deceased donors were used. But those skins are limited in supply. They can cause rejection by the patient's body, therefore requiring replacement every 2 to 3 weeks. Right? This is very costly and painful, can also cause complications like inflammation, scarring, and immunological sensitization, making future possible or potential organ transplants more difficult. Engineered skin substitutes, ESS, offers another option, but they also come with limitations. The options like Integra, the current market leader, so their skin grafts basically face limitations like infection, fluid accumulation, requiring removal and replacement. It's quite expensive. So the newer version, NovoSwab BTM, which is was launched to U.S. market in 2017, they can provide temporary coverage, but they require eventual resurfacing using thin epidermal autograft. So they basically also fail to reduce inflammatory responses and susceptible to infection. To address those challenges, LOAX, one of the largest regenerative medicine laboratory in the world, which is situated in Quebec, they introduced an autologous self-assembled skin substitute with early promises. However, they also face a problem, which is a 6 to 8 week cell expansion period, leaving patients vulnerable to infection, and also they lack key skin features such as sweat glands and pigmentation, impacting the post-injury quality of life. So our project aims to develop a novel anogenic ESS that is immune-protected, effective barrier, rapidly vascularized, and off-the-shelf, saving precious time in emergencies. Our ultimate goal is to create a comprehensive ESS that can fully restore skin structure, function, and aesthetics, including hair, color, and sweat glands. So we will use adipose-derived cells to also basically complete all those skin appendages. Excuse me. And as a result, patients of all races, skin color, and sexes will have equitable access to this tailored medical treatment and its associated benefits. So let's delve into the specifics of this novel skin substitute. Now imagine a two-layered skin substitute meticulously engineered using nanofiber electrospinning and 3D bioprinting in a synergistic way to create optimal microenvironment for cell attachment, proliferation, and wound regeneration. But the magic lies in the cells. We plan to engineer anogenic human skin cells, fibroblasts, and keratinocytes to make them non-immunogenic. Really means they won't trigger rejection from the recipient's body, and they will be programmed to secrete adhesive, lysine, and dopa into the matrix to achieve scarless skin regeneration. They will be also self-limited. They will be programmed to depend on certain specific amino acids, such as glutamine, right? So they will undergo a natural apoptosis, like a natural cell death, when the amino acid depletes. But the beauty lies in the design of the scaffold. Research tells us fibroblasts prefer relatively larger structure for growth, whereas keratinocytes, they thrive on finer fibers. By controlling the nanofiber diameter and also 3D printing threads, we can create optimal environment for each cell type. We can also create core shell structured nanofibers to encapsulate the life-limiting amino acid, the glutamine, right? So then we can precisely engineer the gradual replacement of the anogenic cells by autologous ones, the cells from the patients themselves. So wound regeneration with the aid of these innovative skin substitutes can go as follows. Initially, those anogenic cells will populate the wound with the support and guidance of those scaffolds and initiate microvascularization, blood vessel formation, and regeneration. And after 2 to 3 weeks, they're gonna die out because of the amino acid depletion, which we can engineer into the scaffold. And eventually, they're gonna give space to the cells from the patients themselves to take over and complete the healing, achieve achieving scarless wound healing, we will use adipose-derived stem cells to generate all the skin appendages, including pigmentation, sweat, and sebaceous glands, and the hair follicle. So complexity of this project demands a truly diverse team. Let me introduce the key players. Dr. Badisa from Department of Chemistry, his expertise in synthetic biology is essential for gene editing of the skin cells. Dr. Rolf from the Department of Immunology, he will tackle the immunological and the stem cell aspects of this project. I'm from Biosystems Engineering. I will focus on biomaterial science and engineering, which also is important for the construction of the two-layered scaffold. So here comes our surgeon, Dr. Sarvesh Lagseti. He is a visionary force behind this project. His deep understanding of surgical procedures, honed through decades of experience, proved instrumental to conceptualizing this project. His expertise will be invaluable for the in vivo and the clinical evaluation of the developed engineered skin substitutes. And Dr. Spivak, she is a CIHR trained champion in sex and gender and the EDI. She will bring in social science perspective into this project, basically considering the impact of patients' quality of life. So the scope of this project extends beyond the lab. So we are actively seeking strategical collaborations and securing future funding, aiming to refine the engineered skin grafts by aiming for its final commercialization and broad applications. So these efforts are supported by partnerships with leading institutions and companies in the field. We have ongoing collaborations with the Integra Life Science, which is an industry leader in the field of artificial skin, and LOAX, one of the largest regenerative medicine laboratory in the world, which is situated in Quebec. And Perinano Wound Care, a pioneer in real-time, in situ detection and treatment of infection. So those partnerships will be critical for future refinement and testing and securing funding through CIHR, NSERC, and MITEX. So moving forward, we are committed to integrating EDI principles into our research team and project execution under the guidance of Dr. Spivak, CIHR-trained sex and gender champion and the EDI champion. So that commitment will ensure our work will benefit a broad range of individuals and contribute to the field advancement in a meaningful way. So now, let's take a step back. Imagine a future readily available, off-the-shelf, non-immunogenic engineered skin substitutes can revolutionize the field of skin grafting, healing deep wounds without a trace. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Song, for such a comprehensive account. The paper is open for questions.
Brilliant. Loved it.
Thank you.
We hope you succeed. How did you choose adipocytes as your starting material?
Yeah, so this question I probably want to refer to our team member, Dr. Rolf, who is in the audience. So the reason, I think, because we initially for the gene editing, we're gonna choose cell line, right? But for the skin appendages, we will use stem cell, right? We can really, because Dr. Rolf has a well-established lab, right, to extract stem cells from adipose tissue, right, which is, if otherwise used, will be considered as a waste. And he has access to those tissue, and we can really just make use of them for good purpose. Yeah, hope that answered your question. If not, and okay, yeah, sure.
It's a very nice and innovative approach. So I get the idea of suppressing the immune system to avoid rejection. And then the idea is you're giving the body enough time to use your own cells to regenerate. So I'm curious about the kill switch. Are you timing and regulating the speed or velocity at which the kill switch is instituted? Because if you have this massive apoptotic signal elicited by the kill switch, how are you suppressing the immune system of the regenerated cells? Because you can have autoimmune issues at that point.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Very good question. Just the thing is, kill switch. It's really just when it's on, it doesn't kill. When it's gone, it kills. The thing is, because we can program the cell to be dependent on certain chosen amino acids, such as glutamine. We use that as an initial example, and we can encapsulate the essential amino acids in the scaffold. Right, both in the nanofiber and also the 3D printed collagen matrix. Right, and then they're gonna diffuse out. Right, we can control their release. When they're there, the cell gonna proliferate, initiate wound regeneration. But when the amino acid depletes, when it's gone, the cell gonna undergo the natural apoptosis process. I hope that answers your question, because it's not that we release it and induce the death. Is that when we don't have it, the cell gonna die. Yeah.
Other questions?
Hi, thanks very much. And I am not in the medical field at all, but I was just wondering, are there guards against this being hijacked to be used for non-medical purposes? And then the people who really need this sort of research and treatment are not able to access it.
Sorry, I don't quite get it. Why can't it be hijacked by?
So, for example, I'm thinking about Ozempic, which lots of people are using it to lose weight, and it means that the people who really need it to control diabetes can't access it. Is this something that could, if I wanted to have nicer, younger skin, I jump the queue because I can pay for it, and then people who really need this are unable to acquire it?
Oh, that's a very good question. Okay, now I understand, right, how people can hijack it for other purposes, right, just for good looking. So that's a tough question. Right? I haven't thought about that. Maybe can be used for other purposes. Maybe you can help comment on that. What can we do to prevent that from happening? I think that. Badisa, you can address that comment. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
He's going to call a friend.
So I'm member of the team. I'm biochemist. So I spend all my life, research life, 25 years, just working on the protein, and we are trying to improve quality of the protein. So we are getting old. We are getting gray hair because the quality of our protein deteriorate. Yeah, and certainly the components of our systems are also. You see this magic word, orthogonal translation. So we would certainly have some motifs which are not coming in the nature, like this DOPA and LACE. And then we can, for example, heal. We can speed up and also kind of make regulation of these cellular processes in time and in space. And certainly what you would have at the end, we would have proteins that will help us to heal wounds, but it will not prevent you for using in cosmetic. I mean, this is technology. And of course, for that reason, we always need scientists need to know what they are doing, and scientists need to communicate with it. This is very important. Therefore, communication of science and exchange is very, very important. I very much appreciate your question. And Song, we should think about, we scientists, we should think what are the consequences of our experiments.
Okay, sure, that's good.
And thank you very much. And I think
thank you for
this is the great forum that I do hope we will also, Dr. Pinto, we should maybe think about to organize also to further bring engineering, natural sciences, people from social science and discuss these essential issues. Because you know, every technology is also could be dangerous. But if you have a free society, exchange of idea, and then we can mitigate all these dangers. So thank you.
Thank you for the help.
Thank you for that. It was partly the intent of the Insight program to bring very disparate minds together to discuss serious issues, right? And very complex issues. So thank you for the suggestion, and I'll call on you to lead that at a future date, right? So please join me in thanking Song Liu for a fascinating account. And our last lecture will be delivered by Dr. Adele Perry, and she's going to talk to us about just waters, thinking with hydrosocial relations for a more just and sustainable world. Welcome, Adele.
Well, thank you to Dr. Pinto and to the Office of the Vice President, Research International for this opportunity. And what an opportunity to learn. I'm looking forward to the connectivity in the North. I'm looking forward to new hips and skin and new ways of living with cancer. It's all important work. And it's also been a real opportunity to learn, which is always a win, and very much about what we're doing here today. I want to start with Métis artist David Garneau's 2008 piece titled Winnipeg, to remind us of the deep interconnections between water and human life, what scholars and what we're calling here the hydrosocial. In the particular space where we're all located right now, those of us that are here in the room and not on YouTube, I don't know where the YouTube people are, but maybe some of you are here in Treaty 1 as well. We're not far from the Red River, close to the Seine and the Assiniboine, a place where for millennia Anishinaabe, Innu, and Métis people have developed and sustained ingenious ways to live in a watery, variable landscape. But you don't have to work hard to pitch to a Winnipeg audience in March that water matters and that it matters to all of us. We should not have to work hard to remind a Winnipeg audience that the way that water shapes our lives depends on our different social locations and the ways that are both long-standing and changing in a context of climate change. This is the time of the year when all of us watch the rivers, we mind the ice. We look at the melting and curiously hard snow. We pay attention to the lakes and groundwater with a combination of love and fear, with the knowledge that history and precedent matter, but cannot and should not predict the future. Inevitably, this spring, like so many before us, something will happen that will remind all of us that the infrastructure that provincial, federal, and municipal governments have built will work to serve some communities and not others. My house is well protected by the floodway built by the province in mid-century, but less than an hour's drive away, the Anishinaabe and Innu community of Peguis First Nation floods most years, badly enough to be evacuated in 2006, 2009, 2011, 2014, and 2022. This is just one window into the much of the work that the Just Waters project will take on, and perhaps why it matters. To think about water justice is to think about more than water per se. It is to imagine water as animate, a historical force and rights holder and an actor, something that Indigenous and especially Anishinaabe law teaches us. It is to think about environmental justice and sustainability. It is to think about gender equity, and it is to center Indigenous rights and the health of both humans and non-human beings. Feminist and Indigenous research methods both remind us that the research itself has to reflect the values that we want to see in the world. So to research water justice, we need to do research as justly as we can in the place where we live and we work and to the best of our abilities. This means respecting Indigenous sovereignties, not only when they are codified in Canadian law. It requires a willingness to disseminate research in a range of formats and in a range of languages and to a range of audiences. It requires a deep interdisciplinarity, so which means that scientists listen to humanists and that social scientists listen to artists. And this in turn requires that we are all committed to learning from one another and from the people and the lands that we work with, including about what good scholarship looks like and what it should do. This involves working in both big and small ways to advance what is shorthanded as equity, diversity, and inclusion, and realizing that the structural barriers that have been built over a century and a half of modern colonialism are real and enormous, and require that we center practices of decolonization in all of the work that we do all of the time. The governance of our research project reflects these goals. The first order of business is to establish an advisory circle with representations from Indigenous organizations and communities, the university as a whole and beyond. A steering committee of our researchers will work with staff, students, and trainees. And it is through these researchers that we will support and sustain existing connections with the community, Indigenous communities and organizations. These are connections and relationships that are best built over time. And Just Waters will work to resource those ongoing ties by building connections with affiliated researchers at other institutions, including the Critical Health and Social Action Lab at the University of Toronto or the HWISE network. We will build more of communications and synergies. Within the University of Manitoba, our team is made up of researchers drawn widely, including 7 faculties and 10 departments. From science, we have microbiologists Dr. Ayush Kumar and Dr. Miguel Ayuguari. From agricultural and food sciences, we have soil scientist Dr. Annemieke Fahrenhorst. From arts, we have myself, Dr. Kiera Ladner. From political science and Canada Research Chair in Mayo Wichitin, Indigenous Governance and Digital Sovereignties. And Jocelyn Thorpe from Women's and Gender Studies and History, and also from the Center for Creative Writing and Oral Culture. From the Riddell Faculty of the Environment, Earth and Resources, we have Dr. Zuzu Kuzik, Dr. Stefan McLaughlin, Dr. Shirley Thompson, and Dr. Nicole Wilson, who's with us today, and is the Canada Research Chair in Arctic Environmental Change and Governance. From social work, our team includes Dr. Kendra Nixon, also the director of the Resolve Network on gender-based violence. And from education, Dr. Bruna de Oliveri Jaime. And from the Price Faculty of Engineering, Dr. Ramathan Sriranjan. The Just Waters project is organized around 3 themes, all of which necessarily overlap because that's the way water works. The first is water and climate change, both locally and globally. Much of the current climate crisis and current water injustice is in many respects a crisis and set of injustices around water and the hydrological cycle and related environmental change. An upcoming workshop hosted by Dr. Wilson on water and climate justice will begin a leveling up of our exploration of these issues. A connected theme that crosses all of this, but demands its own space, is the connection between Indigenous peoples, water justice, and water injustice. There are ongoing and pressing issues of water insecurity in Indigenous communities, in particular First Nations, that have shifted in the past 12 or 24 months, but remain pressing. There are also lived conditions on reserve life where drinking water that tests as safe when coming out of treatment plants finds itself unsafe by the time it reaches people's homes. Just Waters will continue to kind of do work on those and related issues, and also work to produce accessible and relevant materials, in particular aimed at kind of high school and associated education levels, including a virtual reality and simulation exercise. A third node that we will take on thinks about the past and the futures of water. Water has stories to tell, and learning about them sheds light on our shared past, and it also helps us imagine a different future for water and our relationships with it. Just Waters will work on archival research on histories of colonialism and drinking water. We'll continue the Center for Human Rights Research longstanding work on a range of water-related issues, including those related to period and menstrual justice, both locally and globally. We'll work to produce an open educational resource that will work to ensure that this kind of information is accessible and available to folks working in classrooms. We'll work to produce a museum exhibit that will be traveling, but will have in its cornerstone be rooted here. Water resists efforts to pin it down. The Just Waters team will move between the themes of water and climate change, Indigenous peoples, water justice, and water injustice, and the past and the futures of water. Wherever we land, we will strive to produce relevant, original, and timely answers to questions of water justice. We will respect Indigenous data sovereignty and the principles of OCAP. We'll work to steward and connect our team's longstanding research around questions of water justice. We draw on a really rich tradition of examining these questions within the university. And this project and the opportunities it kind of presents really allows that work to be kind of consolidated and transformed by more productive and generative conversations and connected to other ways of thinking about water and justice, both within and outside of the institution. And this, of course, includes the possibilities of the other major funding opportunities that Dr. Pinto has referred to, and also the possibilities of building a water institute here at the University of Manitoba. Just Waters will also work to kind of incubate and nurture new interdisciplinary projects, including by supporting postdoctoral fellows, graduate and undergraduate students, community-based researchers. And throughout it all, we will co-learn, we will translate, and we will engage. We will prioritize the importance of the kind of co-learning that I think everybody who's here in this room and perhaps on YouTube, has had an opportunity to experience today, where researchers themselves are transformed by new knowledge, by translating research in different languages, mediums, and idioms, and by engaging audiences where questions of water justice matter the most. The term hydrosocial refers to the process by which water and human society make and remake each other over time. By thinking of the hydrosocial, the Just Waters project will address some pressing questions that we need to answer if we are to build a more just, sustainable world, whether it is for Winnipeg and March, for a global context where water insecurity is intimately tied to gendered inequalities and violence, or for Indigenous communities reckoning with impacts of decades of hydro development and related flooding in the north. Thank you.
Thank you, Adele, for fascinating account and for bringing the historical and human rights aspects to this forum. The paper is open for questions.
Thanks very much. I was just wondering if you had any connections, for example, to the Red Cross, because I know they are often the last-ditch sort of effort to provide clean drinking water and be a stopgap to a lot of these crises situations. I was wondering if they were going to be included in any way at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a very good question. I mean, not that I'm aware of. As far as an existing connection, but there is so much here, and there's a lot of ways to go, but that's certainly an interesting connection to think of. Thank you.
Other questions? Got them all convinced.
I know, they're sold. They're like, no, they're thinking about, I don't want to slip on the ice and break my hip, and it'll all bring all of the connections of today.
Yes, Versha.
I guess I wanted to ask more around how you went about engaging the communities and establishing the connections, because there's the urban piece, there's the rural piece, and there's the Indigenous and the Arctic pieces.
Yeah.
And how have you created the connections in that way?
Well, essentially, just to kind of flip back to the team, what this project does is it draws on people who have built those connections over the course of their careers. I mean, and these are, connections and relationships that are not best activated around particular kind of projects and initiatives, but in context of long-standing kind of interchange and exchange and kind of co-development. So I think what we've seen this project doing is drawing those existing relationships and connections kind of together, and that seeing that as a initiative that must be long-term for it to be meaningful.
This is actually sort of a related question. I wondered, in sort of thinking about community consultation, there's a contemporary piece to that, but are you also thinking, just in view of the number of historians in the group, yourself included, and Jocelyn Thorpe, about doing oral histories, to think about, like, I'm just thinking everyone has their story of, the 1950 flood and the 1997 flood, and what role you think that might play?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and there's lots of possibilities for kind of all sorts of historical work on histories of water, including at the Hudson's Bay Company Archives in Winnipeg, which has really remarkable records for like long-term climate histories and possibilities of kind of oral histories. And there is kind of the idea that, Canadians like to talk about weather. And it's a kind of a throwaway line, but there is a sort of I think there is something meaningful that it is like a currency, and it is something that people have stories to tell and kind of ways of talking about. So I think this kind of project is the kind of thing that might find its way to support just that kind of work. And I think remind us of sort of the different ways that we can come at these questions and to not think about water as this sort of, biomedical or physical fact, but it's something that is deeply kind of social and historical and tied to our human relations and our human rights or the absence of them in all of these different contexts.
If I may, Adele. Adele, I was recently at a water ceremony where water was presented as the giver of life. So will that concept be embedded in your studies? Would you like to comment?
Sure. So I'll just kind of go back to another one of the slides we have there. One of the things in particular that comes out of kind of Anishinaabe kind of water law, but also Indigenous feminist work on the connections between Indigenous women, water, governance, and sovereignty, kind of connects the particular relationship regarding connecting women, water, and kind of a wider environment and world. And certainly when we kind of frame the hydrosocial, profoundly we frame this idea that water is animate, as it is in Anishinaabe-Moan and other Indigenous languages. And also very much tied to these questions of life, and in particular through women and non-binary people having particular custodial relationships to water. So those ideas are kind of core about kind of how we sort of begin and how we see we need to talk about water and draw different conversations about water that are happening, sometimes in ways that don't connect to each other as well as they might.
Any other questions for Adele? If not, please join me in thanking her for a wonderful lecture. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think you'll agree with me that we've had 5 fascinating talks. I think the committee chose well in selecting these 5 to go on to the inaugural Ignite program series. So please join me once again in thanking all 5 team leaders. Okay. And with that, I'm going to ask our president, Michael Benerosh, to provide some concluding remarks. Michael.
Thank you, Mario. And now I ruined that. Welcome, everybody. It's great to be here. My apologies to Phil and Versha because I came in at the end of yours, so I missed yours, and I'm sorry about that. But this is a program that's kind of dear to my heart, and I want to tell you all a little bit. I don't know if Mario told you this when he started, but actually Mario spoke about this in his interview when we interviewed him, and he talked about the fact that he wanted to bring together teams of people at University of Manitoba that would do the kind of research that maybe wouldn't get funded right off the bat by other organizations because it was a little too far out there, or was a little too advanced, or it was big ideas that still needed to be seeded. And you hear this in interviews. People give you big ideas in interviews, and then they come and they get into their job. But the thing about Mario is he actually meant it, and he continued to pursue it. as part of a strategy of elevating research and the impact of research at the University of Manitoba. And when he launched the program, and he started to ask for applications, I asked him how it was going, and he said, you know, we thought we'd get a few applications, but he was blown away by the ideas that were being generated across our community. And I think Ignite's a good name for this in a few ways. One, it's because these projects themselves are igniting ideas that could be revolutionary, but it also ignited our community to start thinking about different ideas, to think a little bit about outside the box, but also to make sure that we bring people across disciplines together. We don't do that enough, and we're seeing already that that kind of work is elevating the discourse in our institution. And so I want to thank Mario and his team for leading this, for getting people together to review the applications. And when he came to me to say, I don't think we started with 5, right? We were supposed to choose, what, 3? 3. He came to me and he said, we don't know how we're going to get to 3. So we settled on 5, but there were many other ideas that I know he said to me he hopes that the researchers at the University of Manitoba continue to work on those ideas. And I think it's a credit to the kind of work that you've been doing since you came here to the University of Manitoba and what we're trying to instill within our community. To the researchers, to everybody involved in this, thank you for putting your time into this, and I'm looking forward to watch your research as it evolves and goes forward through time. So it's an exciting time, and hopefully we'll be able to get more funds together to continue to nurture these kinds of ideas at the University of Manitoba. So I'm really grateful to our community. I'm grateful for all of you who have come out today to listen to these ideas and to want to support the work that's being done here at the University of Manitoba. Now, my staff told me I also have to plug my podcast. Nicole was on that podcast, but they told me I have to plug my podcast. We recorded one earlier this week with Julianne Struva talking about sea ice and the measurement of sea ice. And I think what we've been trying to do with all of this is elevate our researchers, try to provide some knowledge translation, and to have people in our community be able to connect in a way with the work that we're doing. And you should know that the ones that we're taping live, we're getting 100 to 200 people attending those, alumni, people from our community who are interested in the work. And our researchers have been really good at presenting it in a way that I think our community can understand and connect with. And I think it really shows the value of the work here at the University of Manitoba. So I want to thank everybody today for coming. I want to thank Mario and the whole team at the VPRI office for all the work you're doing. And you should know that if it was up to Mario, 90% of our budget would be going into research. He's a tireless advocate for the work that we do here at the University of Manitoba. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Michael, for those kind words. You will note that there was a commitment to future funding of the Ignite program. I never miss an opportunity. So let me just conclude this formal proceeding by thanking Ruth Nechtel, who helped me with the formulation of this entire program. I thank the committee who provided expert education, and the VPRIO staff who put all this event together. So please join me in thanking those individuals. And now if I could ask the speakers to come forward for a future photo op with the president and myself, and please stay, mingle, exchange ideas. That's what we're here for. Thank you all.